Hello and welcome to Cargo Masterminds presented by cargo.one. Cargo.one is the leading e-booking platform for air cargo. Over the last years, cargo.one has been rapidly transforming the industry by introducing new ways of distributing and booking real-time air freight capacity. With access to real-time prices and available capacities, freight forwarders of all sizes can search, compare, and book from multiple airlines with immediate confirmation. On the other side of the marketplace, airlines get access to an efficient, data-driven, and fully digital distribution channel, enabling them to sell air cargo capacity in a smarter way. If you would like to learn more about the platform, you can visit cargo.one/cargo masterminds. My name is Reggie John, and you are watching Cargo Masterminds presented by cargo.one. This is our weekly episode where we bring leaders from global logistic companies for a one-to-one conversation. LATAM Cargo is LATAM Airlines Group's business unit specialized in cargo transportation. LATAM, a leading Latin American airline, has presence in 5 domestic markets in South America and international operations both within Latin America and to and from Europe, the US, and the Caribbean. In 2020, LATAM Cargo transported 817,000 tons of cargo, generating $1.2 billion US. And going by the available numbers for the first half of 2021, LATAM Cargo has generated $715 million US in revenue, transporting 391,000 tons of cargo. The revenue figure is 25.3% more than that of the same period in 2020 and 34.3% higher than that of the same period in 2019. In addition to having access to passenger cargo holds of LATAM Airlines Group, LATAM Cargo has a fleet of 11 freighters, which will gradually increase to a total of 21 freighters by 2023. My guest today is Andrés Bianchi, the Chief Executive Officer of LATAM Cargo. Andrés has more than 16 years of experience in the aviation industry, of which he spent 11 years holding key senior positions in the cargo business of LATAM Airlines Group. In April 2017, he became the CEO of LATAM Cargo. Andrés joins me in this episode of Cargo Masterminds, presented by cargo.one, to talk about the recent developments and some of the highlights of LATAM Cargo's performance through the pandemic. Andrés, welcome to Cargo Masterminds. So glad to have you join us for this conversation from Miami.
Hi, Reggie. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure being here with you.
Let's start with the latest available traffic numbers. And these numbers are for the month of August. You had 240 million revenue ton kilometers, giving you almost 62% of load factor. That is less than that of August last year, 2020, but better than August 2019. Going by what you have seen so far in 2021, what is your assessment for the rest of the year? The peak season is still ahead.
I mean, when you look at our load factors, the first thing is the fleet is fully utilized. Given the way we fly our freighters, the types of cargo that we move, and the mix between domestic and international bellies, load factor in the mid-60s, it's almost full utilization for us. So at this point, we're flying almost completely full. And that's what we're expecting for the rest of the year. I mean, the peak season is looking very strong. The combination of strong demand and still some restrictions on the passenger side are making the peak season look as a very strong period overall, both in terms of load factors and yields.
Let me also get you to reflect and share your thoughts on the performance in the whole year of 2020, the entire calendar year, and which is also the pandemic year. The net cargo revenue for 2020 was an impressive $1.2 billion US. I think You didn't have that kind of revenue figures in the last 4 or 5 years. And that is more than just over $1 billion net cargo revenue for 2019 pre-pandemic. What factors led to such good numbers? Of course, cargo yields have increased significantly in the pandemic.
Well, first of all, 2020 was a very difficult year, a tragic year. So even though the numbers are good, we find very few reasons to celebrate, actually. We would have loved to hit these numbers without having a pandemic being associated to it. So when you look at the numbers, basically I say the improvement in revenues comes from two sources. One, it's obviously an improved rate environment. I think we've seen that globally, and that's driven by this imbalance between supply and demand. But on the other hand, I think it's basically driven by our team's ability to generate extra lift. When you think on our operation, prior to the pandemic, about 50% of our capacity was generated by bellies. So with the massive cancellation of passenger operations and its impact on the international side, especially, we were forced to look at new ways to generate capacity and keep our customers' cargo flowing. And we were able to do this by increasing utilization quite significantly on the freighter side and generating extra lift with passenger freighters, both standard passenger freighters and some planes without seats. Overall, when you look at this, about 30 or 40% of the capacity we generated on 2020 came from these new sources. So that's also what's, beside the rate side, what's behind the improvement in revenues.
How do you expect to close the 2021 calendar year in terms of cargo volumes carried, the load factor, and revenues? What are your projections?
Due to financial reasons, we cannot make any projections for the rest of the year in specific terms. But overall, when you look at how the trends are looking, we expect the year to close very strongly. The combination of inventory shortages, modal shift, and obviously the growth of e-commerce are supporting traffic growth. And while passenger capacity may recover going forwards because demand's improving and some of the restrictions are being relaxed, we believe that demand will still outpace supply. So in terms of yields, load factors, things we should continue to trend upwards. And in terms of our capacity, we are bringing back toward the 767s we had on C checks through the low season, plus addition of the first of the new freighters that's coming in December. So we should increase capacity over the course of October to December on the freighter side.
Okay, I'll come to the additional capacity coming on board with the new freighters joining the fleet. But tell us briefly about the innovations in cargo strategy over the last 18 months. Became a pandemic in March 2020. What are some of the important innovative strategies that you rolled out?
Well, I think the pandemic forced us to adapt very rapidly and very quickly. So some of them were innovations, but most of them, I would call them adaptations to a new reality. For example, we took a very thorough look at the whole of our network, tried to identify opportunities to increase aircraft availability, especially by breaking paradigms that had been long-standing in terms of which airports to operate or what were the times that you had to depart certain locations to maximize loads. So we reviewed the whole network. We, as I mentioned before, we launched the passenger freighter program. At one point, most of the available wide bodies the company had were operating for the cargo operation. So that meant we went from, as you mentioned, 11 freighters to operating at one point over 60 aircraft in a given week. We also looked at ways in which to utilize the passenger capacity differently. We rolled out, as I mentioned, some passenger freighters without seats. And we also opened new routes. For example, we launched in record time all the operation to China. We had never operated China. And that was a very challenging process, especially as we were bringing in goods that were time critical at the time, like PPE or vaccines. And on vaccines especially, we took this great challenge of bringing them to South America. And so far, building up on the pharma expertise we have developed over the years, we've been able to ferry in more than 60 million vaccines. We've also carried over 120 million doses of vaccines for free within our domestic markets. So all that was also a very interesting challenge because moving pharma domestically at this scale wasn't something we didn't traditionally do. But more importantly, I would say that what makes us the proudest is the fact that we were able to do this in the middle of a pandemic with a lot of difficulties communicating because we had to work from home, leveraging the talent, the expertise, the processes, and the tools that we had developed over the last few years, and so with the tradition of LATAM Cargo. So we're able to do this very quickly, as I said earlier, and we're very happy with the results because it was all done by our teams and our people.
Let me just spend some time on your freighter fleet. You have 11 now, and you would have 10 more added 767 converted freighters that would come in you will have a total of 21 freighters by the end of or through 2023. And the first of the 10 new additions would come join your fleet in December 2021. Is that right?
That's right.
Tell us also about what was the mix of cargo-only passenger flights with cargo on seat and cargo-only passenger flights with seats removed from the passenger cabin. How many of them did you operate and in the last 18 months? And do you intend to continue such flights in the coming months?
Perfect. Yes, we started the program of passenger freighters, and it was basically a reaction to the cuts, the massive cuts that we were facing in passenger capacity right after the pandemic. So we saw our customers struggling. Remember, we bring a lot of perishables out of South America. Let's say 80 to 90% of the cargo that we built out of South America are perishables, and our customers needed their goods to get to the market, right? So that's the reason we started the passenger freighter program as a way to support our customers. And I mean, passenger freighters are not the greatest economic proposition. And also, you need to be very careful about the aircraft type you want to operate. We were fortunate to have the right aircraft types to launch these programs. And we were also fortunate to have built a very good handling team that had the expertise to maximize loads on this aircraft. We broke several records in terms of reaching payload on the materials or the aircraft that we operate. So overall, we flew during 2020 over 2,900 passenger freighters. And so far this year, we operated over 1,500. And as I mentioned, we went from operating standard 777s and 78s and 76s with their passenger seats on to, in the end, doing what we call light conversions on 4 aircraft, which are the ones going into full conversion later on to fly them without seats. So overall, we're very happy on how this program performed.
You said there are 4. You have light conversion, which is basically the seats removed in the passenger cabin, and the aircraft type is that Boeing 777-300?
Oh, those are Boeing 767-300s. Those are the planes that eventually will go in conversion. Actually, one of them is already being converted, so we're operating 3 now.
So you didn't remove the seats, or you didn't do the light conversion in any of the 777-300s?
We do one 777 and one 78 at one point, but basically because it was the best way to bring PPE.
Andrés, with the air freight capacity continue to be under stress, and it is going to be that way, at least from the general estimate, it is going to be that for the foreseeable future. Do you plan to add more converted freighters of any size range to your fleet?
Well, first of all, let me talk briefly about the story of the plan, because this plan was designed and pre-approved prior to the pandemic. So it's not a reaction to some of the demand shifts and the lack of passenger capacity that we've seen because of the pandemic. It's more of a strategic decision of the company to grow on the freighter side. So the plan was, as I said, approved prior to the pandemic. We increased the size of the plan after, because more feedstock became available. But the idea was to grow the freighter fleet because there's a strategic commitment on our end to grow it, because we believe our markets require additional freighter capacity. Now, we made the decision to grow with 767s because we believe the 767, it's the best aircraft type to operate in and out of South America. We've been flying them North America to South America for a long time. We've flown them in the domestic market in Brazil quite successfully in the past. And in the last few years, we've flown them out of between Europe and South America with also very good results. So the flexibility the 767 provides us and the match it has in terms of size and the markets we serve makes it the best aircraft. So At the time being, our focus is on growing with 767s. We believe with the plan that we have right now, growing from 11 to 21, we have a very good runway to grow, and we don't expect to make any additions to the fleet in the near future. We may look at different aircraft types if something changes, but our strategic decision is to grow with 767s at the time.
And by 2022, how many add to your fleet? The first one is coming in end of this year.
By the end of 2022, we should have 15 aircraft operating.
With the kind of passenger to freighter conversions rolled out, new converted freighters coming into market, do you expect, and also the kind of orders being placed, do you expect by end of next year, early 2023, you would have the capacity that is required? And do you look at some of these freighters as well?
Okay, first we do our homework. We look at all the freighters that are in the market and different solutions, and what are the economics and how they would fit with what we plan to do in the future. Having said that, we remain convinced that 76 is the right option for us at the time. And also when we built our model and we built our growth strategy, we built it thinking not on 2020 or 2021 kind of economics, but on 2019 economics, because we need to be prepared for any downturn to make this a sustainable fleet that's able to keep our customers moving their goods in good and bad times. So from that perspective, we're looking at those. We are doing the math. We have some ideas of how some aircraft would perform for us, and if the right opportunity comes along, we might consider it. But at this time, we have no plans other than receiving our 10 767 BCFs and rolling them out on the network that we have devised.
Andrés, e-commerce in general across geographies is growing in double digits. This gives rise to a lot of cross-border cargo movement by air for e-commerce companies. How are you planning to take advantage of this rapidly growing segment at LATAM Cargo?
Obviously, e-commerce is one of the driving forces behind what we've seen in recent months in terms of trade volumes. We are working on a set of strategies to serve e-commerce. And why do I say a set of strategies? It's because we believe the e-commerce market can be segmented into different areas, both in terms of its geographic scope and the requirements the client has. So you have to look at whether it's cross-border or domestic, and the requirements associated to carrying the cargo, whether it's regional, and whether the client is, for example, on domestic markets, they require airport-to-airport service or door-to-door. And in addition to all the network and commercial decisions, there's also a IT side of the story, technological side of the story, in which e-commerce is extremely demanding. And we're also working on improving our IT capabilities to be able to connect better with our customers, and therefore provide e-commerce players with the service they require. So we're working on, I mean, I don't want to go into details because some of these projects are confidential, but the idea is to provide an array of options for e-commerce players to work with us, not a single solution.
Let me come to another important cargo commodity, pharma and temperature controlled cargo, and it will be a significant cargo commodity, increasing revenue because of its high yield. However, the quality and reliability of service offered will make the difference for any airline to be successful here. How are you building your pharma vertical capability so that you become a preferred cargo airline for your customers for such an important commodity?
Right, definitely pharma. It's one of the commodities we're making a lot of work on it, and we started early on. We were the first airline to be certified CIV in 2017 in the Americas. We were the first airline to be recertified, and we finished the recertification process in December 2020. So we've been working. This shows that we've been working in building our capabilities from way back. We already have 40 stations that are pharma capable. Pharma, it's let's say a network within the network, because we don't sell pharma between an O&D. We only use select O&Ds to be able to ensure that proper services provided. And this has led to a quite interesting growth on the pharma side. I mean, our revenues have grown 3 times since we started, and I think that it's a testament to our both the forgers and the shippers realization that we are a strong provider on this particular vertical.
Another important commodity for LATAM cargo is a perishable. You move a lot of perishable cargo, basically flowers, fruits, vegetables into Miami and to the rest of the US. Tell us how your perishable facility opened early last year, just before the pandemic in Brazil, supporting your perishable cargo movement, and how will you be investing more into the perishable facilities across your network?
Right, perishables is extremely important for us, as a majority of the exports coming out of South America belong to this particular group, either salmon in Chile, flowers in Colombia, or vegetables and asparagus in Peru. So keeping a robust set of coolers and facilities to support their movement is critical to our success. That's the reason why we invested on the cooler in Sao Paulo. The idea of that cooler is to enable us to connect cargo coming from other countries in South America to our network originating in Sao Paulo, which is basically a passenger network. As a consequence, the cooler hasn't been fully utilized in 2020 or 2021, but as we expect our network to start recovering during 2022, obviously volumes into the cooler are expected to increase. Now, we are extremely committed to keeping state-of-the-art facilities to support our growth on the perishable side and to providing not only the cooler facilities, but the processes to make the transfer of this cargo, which is quite sensitive, very swift in our facilities. And also we're working on certifications to also replicate what we've done on the pharma side, on the perishable side.
Will you be going for the IATA fresh certification as well?
Yeah, we piloted it and we are working on it. And also it's important to mention on the perishable side that we're making another commitment, which is also supporting the perishable business with better sustainability practices, because we believe it's also critical for the success of our shippers going forward. So working, for example, in reducing residues or waste that may impact the environment, for recycled materials or blankets that can be reused, for example. So it's improving the value proposition overall.
Okay, LATAM also has been one of the biggest airlines moving COVID vaccines around the world, and it's been one of the airlines brought in several millions of doses of vaccines into Latin America. And you did something that is really noteworthy, is your solidarity plane program, by which you transported more than, I believe it is 100 million doses of COVID vaccine, which is 40% of the, or more than 40% of the doses administered in the region and 2% of the doses worldwide. This is something that you did free of charge. Is this an ongoing program that you intend to pursue?
Actually, it's an ongoing program, and the updated figure is 120 million doses that we've carried free of charge. And it's part of our commitment to support our societies. Actually, the whole project, the whole vaccine project was called Project Hope, which entailed carriage on the international, with the standards that were required, plus all the domestic carriage. And that's within the scope of the solidarity plane that you mentioned, which is a program that started 10 years ago. And the idea was to promote social, economic, and development, and especially in times of crisis. Unfortunately, our region is impacted by crisis quite frequently. So we've carried goods for earthquakes, floods, massive fires. So this is a program that has been long going. And when the pandemic started, we figured that the best way we could support our communities was using what we know how to do best, which is to move sensitive cargo rapidly into the region. And we believe that our teams have done an amazing job so far in delivering the vaccines.
And this digital strategy and transformation are ongoing process, and they keep evolving to meet the challenges. What are some of your priorities to have a robust digital infrastructure for your cargo business?
Well, I'd say that, first of all, cargo has changed, and IT is an integral part of your value proposition. So it's no longer only aircraft or ULDs or warehouses. The tech component to your delivery, it's critical. And that's why we decided 4 years ago that it was time to engage on a massive and dramatic change on our IT landscape. And we selected Corames, which is Wipro's cargo solution. We went through the cutover in June, and for the international, we are going to cut over to the domestic operations next year. And the idea is to build first a very solid architecture at the core that encompasses a cloud-based solution with a world-class uptime and the ability to start then plugging new technologies into the system. One of the reasons we chose Kuramis is that it's sort of a very modern system, and we're going to start rolling out now new customer-facing interfaces to enable them to connect either via APIs or by using our portals, and therefore make life for our customers simpler, more efficient, and more convenient.
And just what is the status of the Kuramis rollout? Has that rollout been completed across your network? If not, by when do you expect to be completed?
International was completed in June. I would say by mid-June, most of 90% of the network was completely stabilized. By mid-July, 100% of the network had been stabilized and had transitioned fully. And we were pretty happy with the process. As most of these processes go, there are some hiccups along the way, but we believe that that's past us, and we are pretty happy with the way the rollout is continuing. As I said, we plan to roll out for the customer-facing side of the system on the fourth quarter, and domestics are transitioning to the new suite in mid 2022. That means we're cutting over Brazil, Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador, which is 5 countries, of which very different requirements during next year. And with that, the whole transition should be completed.
Capacity remains very constrained, and the freight rates are very elevated. As a result, you have a very higher yield. Any sense of when there will be equilibrium in terms of capacity versus demand versus supply?
Well, first of all, if there's one thing I've learned, never to make forecasts in the cargo industry, because you always get them wrong. So having said that, I'd say that when you look at sort of the capacity side of the story, we expect international capacity to start normalizing. And by normalizing, I mean reaching levels close to the pre-pandemic levels of 2019 by 2024-25. And freight capacity should grow with addition of all the freighters have been rolling out in recent months. Now, whether that's enough to balance the market, I think it's anybody's guess. I think the one stat that sort of I always keep on my mind is air freight is 1%, 1 or 2% of global trade. So any small movements in terms of modal shift can completely move the balance in terms of supply and demand. So we're keenly aware of that, and we're looking at the trends that make shape the future of sort of the split between sea and air. And also the other thing that we are monitoring quite closely, it's political and economic developments across the globe, and especially in our regions. Coming off the pandemic, there was a lot of government support that was provided, and that probably has been one of the surprises how robust, for example, consumer demand has been. We need to see how that translates into the next few years as that support gets withdrawn and needs to be paid for. So we're trying to figure out how those two forces balance each other to see where demand's going to be and how the long-term or medium-term supply and demand equilibrium finds itself to be.
Do you expect from the current scenario on the container shipping prices that is underway, do you expect some sort of a movement from sea freight to air freight happening as we approach the peak season?
I'd say definitely we're seeing that kind of movement, and that's reflected on the type of commodities we see on our planes, which are sometimes commodities that are very odd to be in a plane, or in sometimes we've never actually seen them before. So I think that's the way it's playing out as shippers find themselves in the need of alternatives to sea shipping. Now, whether a lot of that stays going forwards, I think it's questionable, because some of those commodities are their natural ways of transportation at sea. But other commodities, I think, will find a different balance, and we'll try to probably look for a mix between air and sea more than a unique sea solution.
Andrés, it was such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks to you, Reggie. It was a pleasure. Stay safe.
That was Andrés Bianchi, the Chief Executive Officer of LATAM Cargo. I hope you enjoyed watching this interview. If you like what we do, please do share it among your networks. Also, if you are not a subscriber of our YouTube channel, please do subscribe now and click the bell icon so that you do not miss any of our new videos. Join me next Monday as I bring a new guest for a one-to-one conversation here in Cargo Masterminds. Until next Monday, take good care and have a great week ahead. Thank you.